Perfect. So to combine two pieces of waxes, as we first of all, let's refresh a little bit how you repair. So in your case, you can be using a candle. Remember, we are warming up a tool on the candle and mixing the waxes together. So I'm going to be using a wax pen just for so you see. So it has a tip. It is connected to the the plug anyway, and it's gonna get warm up. So when you have something, two pieces that have broken, let me find, let's say that this, I want to connect these two pieces. You are warming up the tool, making sure that it has warmed up. Okay, it was working a minute ago. Give me a second. Yeah, so it's warming up. The same thing happens if you are using, if you are using the cheap one from Cookson, the 20 pounds one with the batteries, it's gonna do the same thing. So normally you control the temperature to connect. You don't want it to be too hot because you don't want your pieces to burn, the wax to burn completely. So technically you go in there with the tool and you are making sure that you are mixing the two pieces, the two waxes together. The smoke, you see, it's just, bits of wax that are on the tool and they're getting, even though it is a quite low temperature. So you are making sure that you go both sides and you are mixing the two pieces together. That's how it's working. It is important not to be too hot anyway. The ones the normal that you have to control the temperature, these can get too hot. Also, if you want to add stuff, I have my dust here. I can just dip my wax pen in there to grab some wax and add it in. That's how it's working when you have, this works the same with the fancy wax pens. It works the same with the, with the wax pen, that the one with the butters. The only disadvantage of that one with the butters that's, you are going to be spending a lot of money on a lot of batteries. That's the whole thing. So, and that's how you can add wax. So you dip it here. You see the wax on the tip, and then you place it here, and you are making sure that you can, and in that way you can also do like patterns on the wax itself. You can even, some people, they manage to do like granule shape. So technically you go in there, becomes a ball, and then you just place it like that. So it's like a granule. However, make sure at the end of it, or once it's cold a little bit, you go in there and you make sure that that the granule sticks. Probably a thinner tip would be more useful for something like that. Or you can go like, yeah, and create like a granule effect. Just make sure it goes all the way in. So you are actually mixing it and it's not going to come off. That's the only danger with this technique. So it has like an effect of like bolts on, little granules. So that's how you can use that one. So in case you are trying to mix two pieces of wax together, also if you want, to clean the wax pens, you just let it burn the wax off, or you just increase the temperature and it's gonna burn it off in no time. I know it is smoking a little bit, quite a lot actually. So perfect. So that's the one way. So if you want to mix two waxes, two different types of waxes. So let's say I have I don't know, this piece of wax here that I've completely destroyed these days. And I've made, let's say I've made a design out of, that's the pink waxes. Remember, these are like sheets. They come in that one. Becky had showed that on the video. And they are quite flexible, so you can actually, you know, if you want to make like a design of, I don't know, like a curtain, or I don't know, something like that. Let's say I want to stick, I've made that detail on the pink wax and I want to stick it on top of my ring here. So the thing that you need to be aware of is that the pink wax, it has a lower melting temperature than the blue, much lower. So what you want is to mix, to make sure that when you are mixing them, you are mixing the blue one together with the pink one. Otherwise, you're just gonna melt that one without it sticking on the wax complete at all. So what you are doing, let's say I want to stick it here, I'm making sure that my pen goes on the blue and then on the pink one. So they are getting, you know, mixed together. So there is blue wax on the pink. I don't know, we need to reduce the temperature, let it cool down a little bit. So again, here I'm going on the blue first. I'm making sure that and then I'm going to the pink. That's to make like a safe connection. You don't want these to fall apart the moment, you know, he puts the sprue on and he adds it on the wax, when he adds the sprue. So still make sure that the, you know, that the one wax goes on top of the other. To have a nice secure connection. So let's do it here, which is more obvious. Okay, that's too low. Okay, that's a bit too low. Interesting. Give it a bit. And here it is. Normally, you know, the normal wax pens, they have temperature. So all these waxes, the blue wax is around 190 degrees. Just mine, because it's DIY, it says volts instead of temperature, but don't worry, that's not something you will come across. That's why I need to practice. So here, and you let it cool down, and then everything has become one. You see here how the two waxes have been mixed together. So that's how you make a safe connection. Normally, to do something like that, it's good, you know, to have at least that 20 pounds wax pen. That's useful. So that's how. And of course, if you need, you can also apply a little bit more. So if I feel like here, you know, it gets a little bit, you know, I can apply. That's why your dust is your best friend in a certain case, because I can just go there, add some wax. If I feel like, you know, that I burned quite a bit off. And still making sure that everything is nicely mixed. So that's how you make a good connection. So, and the same thing applies if you want, for example, to also be careful with the wax pens and the tips. That's the reason I have put it a little bit weirdly here. which I didn't really want it anywhere near my laptop. So then if you, for example, this is, remember this wax is like the ones that it's like sprue wax. Where is the camera here? But it comes like in cord shape. Normally you can make like some designs with it and stick them on it, or, or they just use it for sprues as well. So if, for example, I want to have a design here, it's the same thing. Also, these soft sprue waxes, they also melt at a lower temperature than the hard ones. Don't be confused because they have the same color. They are not the same. So again, I can just go here, make sure I mix the, oops, make sure you have a way to keep them together. Then just, oh, these waxes, okay, that's not gonna work very well. I think the other thing you can do with this is you can melt it on top. That's nah. Yeah, these are, it depends on how hard it is. This cannot, I can do it with a pink, with a green one I have here, because that's for wax as well. But it's also the same consistency. Again, you are mixing the two waxes together. Let me do it here so I don't destroy it from you. You put the, you don't see anything. Yeah. And again, you make sure you drag the blue one towards the sprue wax, because normally the sprue waxes, they do melt at a lower temperature. Down so I can let you go. And I can do that all the way around. In this case, because it's so thick, you need to put your wax pen quite in, or your tool, whatever. So you are making sure that they connect. Also, it's not only around, it's the center as well that's connected. And also have in mind that a good helper in these cases is gravity as well. Because, wax, when it gets hot, it becomes like liquid. So it's gonna move towards, so if I wanna bring some wax here for some, to make a connection or something and something like that, I can just, hold it a little bit like that. So it's gonna drip towards the bottom. So that's how you connect different types of waxes. Of course, if you're casting jewelry, you want to use only waxes that, we're using in jewelry. So these sprue waxes, the pink wax, these waxes are absolutely fine. So that's it for the connection of different things. So now we can talk a little bit about the stones. Let me turn that off first. Okay. Let me get the sign to go down. So see, now it has become one piece, that thing. So that's how we do the connection of different types of waxes, but always making sure that the one covers the other, and mostly the one that has a higher melting point goes on top of the one with the lower, with the lowest melting point. So you are sure that when they become solid, they are connected. So that's it for this part. So let's now talk stones. So let's say you've made a ring and you want to add a stone, either cabochon or, faceted. Just for your curiosity, that's just glass, I think. So you want to make something like that. So once you have your piece casted, you want to set the stone. So that's the cabochon. Cabochons are either round shape or they can be oval shape. one good trick is that if you are using cabochons, the thing is, all the round ones are always trickier to use than the oval ones for some weird reason. Anyway, the weird reason is that a perfect circle is harder than an oval shape, because an oval shape you can get it done at some point. You can actually fix it with the round. It can be done, of course. It's just a little bit harder, that's all. So to make a perfect circle, so probably you will make it almost there, and once you have it casted on the metal, then the setter or yourself, if you know how to set the stone, you can fix it properly and have it nicely stand. Because I prefer the perfect circle can always be hard in a way. So you will always need to make it perfect when it's cast in the metal, because in metal you have more control of the shape, more control of the material you need to take off and stuff like that, while with wax it can get confusing in certain cases. So let me show you really quickly here on the screen some stuff, and then I will do it on a couple of pieces I have here. So let me share the screen. Here we are. So let's say we're not going to do exactly that, but so let's say we want to set a stone, an oval stone on top of a signet ring here, for example. So that oval stone is 10 by 12 millimeters. So it's 10 here, 12 here. So it's actually the same size as the top of your signet ring. But of course, you need, if you were to set a stone, you had to go lower than that. Have in mind, when you are setting stones on top of rings and stuff like that, you are making the gap. You want at least 1 millimeter gap around the stone. So not a gap, you need at least 2 millimeters of metal around the stone. The reason being is once you have it casted and you want to set the stone, you need to have enough metal there to push on top of the stone and close it. That's why you need to leave at least 2 millimeters. Not at least, 2 millimeters, yeah, at least. So because in these settings, what's happening is that after the metal is carved, is casted, so not carved, the setter is gonna push some metal on top of the stone to keep it in place, or you can make it thinner than 2 millimeters and close it like a bezel. That's always a little bit harder though. So technically, let's say someone wants to make like that. I will upload that PowerPoint on Canvas as well for your reference. So here it's the whole exercise. So technically you fix the size of the ring. And then what you are doing, you are deciding where you want to put your stone and how tall your stone needs to be. I will do that as well here, so you will see it a little bit clearer, but it's also on the pictures. So technically, you are deciding where you want your stone. You are deciding how tall you want your ring to be. How tall, at what height you want the stone to be as well. You are marking the shape of the ring, of course, like we did with all these exercises we did today, over those 2 days. And then technically you are opening a gap. You're opening a gap where you want your stone to fit. So you stick it at the top, you mark where the stone is, and you start digging material off. And the stone can go there. So technically that's what you are doing. You are digging and shape like, like a small cup without a bottom, technically, if it's a cabochon. You see here what they have done. This hole at the bottom is for the light to come through, so you can see the stone better, the color of the stone. So technically you carve these edges and the stone sits there. And once it's done, and then the setter is going to push the metal on top of the cabochon and close it. They can keep it in place. If it's a facetted, you need to have the stone So technically you are creating a triangular cup. So let me change the stop sharing so I can show you on the camera. On the So if it's a cabochon, the cabochons are always like that. So they have a little bit of a straight area here, and then they close. This can be very small in certain stones, it depends on the cutting, and that's completely random, that's based on the stone itself. There are some stones that this straight part is lower, other stones is like a little bit higher. So technically to set it, you want to have metal above this part here, so the metal can come here when it's pushed and keep it in place. And what you need to carve on your ring itself is a cup like this. So I'm just gonna. So you need to carve the cup like that. So your cup, the height of your cup, this part here, needs to be a little bit higher than the zone of the cabochon. I don't think it's visible. No, you're not gonna be able to see on the camera. And I don't have a bigger one. Why? So, oh yeah, that one is probably a little bit more obvious. So if you see that one, you see here, it's quite straight. And then the curve of the cabochon starts. So you want your cup to be above that straight part. So when the metal is pushed, I'm just going to accentuate a little bit the effect so it's clearer. So if the stone is like, I'm just going to make it shallower so you can lower so you can see the corner here. So here you have the zone, and here you have the corner where the stone comes in. Your cup needs to be here at that height, higher than the zone. So when the metal is pushed, it's gonna get pushed here. So it will keep it in place. If it was here, just at the height of the zone, it wouldn't hold anything in, because how are you gonna hold it? It's just gonna come off, So you need the cup to come here. So once you cast it here, the setter or yourself can push that metal in here, spread it a little bit, fill it in like here, and keep the stone in place. Is that clear how this type of setting works? The same thing happens with bezels, technically, but they are just thinner, because technically the bezel, it's thinner, so it's like a cup like that one, the bezels. You put the stone in there, and then again, you're just in the case of bezels, you're bending the metal a little bit here because it's so thin, you can actually bend it in and keep the stone in its place. That's the setter is pushing metal all here, and it holds the stone in place. Of course, that's all the way around. So you have the stone and you have the setting all the way around. So this happens everywhere, and the stone is kept in place. This gap here, it's done, to save metal. So that's why the cup that you are carving has a hole to save metal, of course, and also to help the light pass through the stone and enhance its color. So if you see that one here, that's not set it in any way. That's just because it's cheap amber. It's a bit, but anyway. So you see here there is no bottom, just this case technically. The reason being is for the light to pass through the stone. So when the person is wearing it, they can, the color can be enhanced. That's the reason we have these gaps. Also, there is a funny historical reason why they started to doing it. They started having gaps in the Middle Ages because people believed in the healing properties of the stones. So they wanted the stone to be in touch with the skin of the wearer. So that's why they started making, you know, bottomless, bottomless, you know, like cups and stuff, and bezels. That was the first reason. Nowadays, of course, we do it for aesthetic purposes. So it helps them the light shine through. The same thing with cabochons, and of course, we do the same thing with the facettes. So in the facette, in the cabochon, that's what you are doing. So technically, you are carving. So that's the ring from the example we just saw. You are carving this type of cup. So you are counting where the stone is, and then you are carving this thing. So if you see here, it has this little base, you know, this little balcony here, where, let me take that off, probably it will help with focusing. So this lip here, this balcony like here, where the stone is sitting, and then that's the height of the setting. So that comes higher than the zone of the amber. So once that's casted, it's easier, you know, to push metal in there and tidy up. So that's how it's working with the cabochon. Actually, let me show you quickly how that's done, and then we go to the facette. So let's say I want to put that cabochon on top of this ring, of this piece of wax. So what I have done already to save us time is I've marked the center. Let's say I want to put all these stones at the center. Of course, if your design is different, you want to put the stone in another position, or you have two stones, you do your mathematics and you find their position. I'm gonna do it at the center because it's easier, you know, to understand. So let's say I wanna put the stone at the center of my ring here. I've marked my centers as we did, you know, on every exercise over these past 6 days. And then I just, you know, I check the dimensions of my stone. So let's say I want to do a round one. This stone that I have here, I think, yeah, it's 10 millimeters, isn't it? Yes, it's 10 millimeters in diameter. So let's say here we have to talk a little bit about, remember actually what we said about the shrinkage. So if I want to make a one-off piece, so I made that ring once, I'll cast it once and I'll polish it and I'll give it to the customer. I can just go with these dimensions. If if I want to make multiples, I want to make a silicone mold and make multiple pieces, I will need to make it bigger. And actually, to keep checking, what I'm gonna do, if I wanna do that, is I'm gonna put some tape, paper tape, whatever tape you have anyway, around it a couple of times to make it fatter, to make the stone fatter. And I'm gonna give myself some space around. So if my stone is, so I'm just gonna, you know, wrap it around with tape a couple of times, 1 or 2 times, just to make it fatter. So I'm sure that my stone, that it's bigger. And I can accommodate for the shrinkage. Just to simplify that exercise, I'm not gonna do that. We're just gonna go with the case that we are casting it once, and that's it. So it's in one-off piece, a bespoke order. So my stone is 1 millimeter, it's 1 centimeter. What I'm gonna do, I'm taking my dividers. So if the diameter is 10, my radius would be 5. So I'm gonna put my dividers at 5. So here at 5, and then go to the center and then mark the circle of my stone. It's these cases where, you know, having stencils will make your life easier. You can always use the dividers to mark the circle, but you know, if you have a stencil, it's gonna be easier actually. Just put it. So that's gonna be my stone here at the center. So of course, that's just the stone. I need to mark my lip as well. And we said that we need at least 2 millimeters around. So if that was 5 millimeters, I need my okay, brought it just in the dimensions that I okay. So if I that's the 5 millimeters radius, that circle. If I want also 2 millimeter of a lip around, that means that I need one more circle of 7 millimeters. So I'm gonna go here and mark the lip around the stone. That's it. Of course, you can go thinner. So here, that's probably one. When it's thinner, it's just the plan is to be closed like a bezel. So instead of pushing metal, you are closing the top and you are hugging it exactly where you close a bezel. If it's thinner, with the 2 millimeters is if the stone setter is gonna go after here and push the metal and close with the metal instead of the whole thing. That's why. So now that's the stone, that's the lip. So I decide how we want the rest of the shape of my ring now that I know where my stone is. So let's say that I want, you know, I wanted to just have like a simple signet ring with this stone on top. So in my case, oh, the other thing we need to do before that is we decide how high we want our stone to be. So I may want my stone, always make sure that it's not fully in touch with the finger, you know, so there is some height for the light, you know. So you give it a little bit of space. So if I decide, I can decide here, let me see. This green one doesn't look good on camera at all. So if I decide that you can decide how, you know, at which height you want. Do you want it here? It's just a little bit above the finger. Can you see? Just a little bit above the finger. Or do you want it higher or even higher? That's up to you. The thing that you need to be aware of is that, you know, you can put it as high as you like. The problem is the lip, you know, the straight part of the stone is inside. So let me do it on the paper so it's a little bit clearer because you cannot see with the camera and that's something so small. So technically your ring is like that, the piece of wax of the ring. And that's the hole for the finger. So you need to decide, you can decide where you want your stone to be. You may want it to be here at that height. If you want it at that height, you need to cut your ring around here because you want the stone to be inside. You know, remember we said that the cup needs to be higher than this part of the stone. So that's how you measure it, you know, how you want it to be. You can put it wherever you want. If you want to put it, the thing is you cannot put it higher than this position. So if your piece of wax is like that, you cannot put it higher than here. That's exaggeration. You're not going to make a tower of a ring, but so still this straight part of the stone needs to be below the highest point of the ring. So you are able, you know, to push it and close it. That's all. So in my case here, that one, I can say that I want it. If I wanted it here, I would have to make my, let me see if I put it, if I put the light here, it doesn't help. Yes. So if I want it here, I can decide anyway how high I want it. So let's say that in my case, the height here is like 7. Yes, it's 7 millimeters. So the height I have. So from here to here, it's 7 mils. And if I check my stone, I can get my dividers just to measure a little bit how tall the zone is. Actually, that's a much better lighting. So my thinking needs to come, you see here. It needs to come just above the stone, where the curve of the stone starts. Always in the cases like that, when you have stones, give yourself quite a bit of space. Don't be too exact, because if you're too exact and something goes wrong, then you have a serious problem in your hands. And trust me, we can always repair waxes, but it's not very, it can get, confusing when we start, if you have to open a bezel and add wax because you opened it, too low or too high, it can get confusing and annoying because the parts of the wax can be quite thin. So I need at least this height. So this height here, if I put it on my ruler, it's approximately 3 millimeters. It's 2.5, let's say 3. So I need at least 3 millimeters. So then I mean, so if I want it to be, here, if I don't want to make it shorter, because I'm not going to make it shorter, was it? And open it with, 3 millimeters. So I'm gonna mark it here. So you see, a little bit clearer. So that's where my stone is gonna sit. In my case, because I don't want to make it, I don't want to make it, shorter now because I did my measurements. So here, and if I want to give myself just a little bit of space because it is tall anyway, I can say that it's gonna sit a little bit, let's say 5 millimeters, and yeah, 4 actually. So I'm gonna mark it here correctly. So yeah, let's bring it a little bit lower just to be on the safe side of things. Of course, if you want to, if you want to make the ring shorter, you can do whatever you want, You just need to calculate that it fits, that's all. So let's say that my stone is gonna sit there. So that's the parts. So I know where my stone is gonna sit and I know where it is. So now the only thing I need to do now is just fix the shape of my ring. Let's say, let me do it very, very quickly. Part. Now it would be so good to have a penda motor here, but well, you can't ask for everything in this life. So technically I'm filing around the shape. of the ring. I'm just gonna fix the top now anyway, just to make that demonstration slightly quicker. Of course, technically you need to have fixed the shape of the bottom part, but that's just so once you have that shape around the lip, the outer lip of the okay, let me do the other side as well. And this is green and it takes longer. Okay, it's getting there really quickly. So, okay. So technically I have filed close to the edge of the stone here. So next thing that you can do, once you have that in place, is dig off the part where the stone is. In these cases, you know, if you have a pentamotor, just use a driller, please, because or a ball burr, because you know, otherwise it's just. So technically, you just dig off the material. Also, I would suggest in cases where you're making gaps for stones like that, don't drill all the way down at first. So don't do this opening at the start. You can make just a small one, but don't do the whole opening because you are making your piece fragile. That's the problem. So you just dig off once. So go with the drill once all the way down just to know where your center is and where the center of the stone is going to be. But don't at any case go, you know, take off everything because you made your ring fragile by doing that. So you just go and do that. You see, I have made a hole at the bottom. This is huge. I didn't want to mess the signature, otherwise I would have done it on the signature. So here, you see the hole. So you know where the center of the stone is. So in that case, once you have done that, then you start taking off material the same way we did it, you know, we used to take material off for hollowing. The same way, you just do it just at the top. And always bearing in mind how deep you want your stone to be. So you just take off material around here. Of course, this situation is much easier if you can use a ball burr, as you can understand, because it's a matter of seconds, while here it can be tricky. So you take off material and you try in the stone to see how it fits as you open it up. So technically that's how you are doing. And always you are taking off material, whether with a tool or with a ball burr. You take material at the top and then you go towards the bottom so you can control the depth and you don't end up with a cup that's too deep for the stone, or it is uneven. So technically you are using the material, you are using the tool or the ball burr, and you take material gradually from the top towards the bottom to help it, to control the depth. So I'm not gonna do that now though, because it's gonna take some ages to do it for the cabochon, but technically that's what you are aiming for. So technically you start taking off material from the top, bringing it down towards the bottom, and making sure that you have like a nice corner here. That one you can use like a small burr or a tool, or a wax carving tool, just to make sure that here you have a nice corner, for the stone to fit it. It's not, because what can happen is this corner there in the cup. You may have made something like that. For your cup. If you don't have a nice sharp corner there, always focus on that corner and make sure it's sharp. Because if you have a corner like that, probably your dimensions are correct, but your stone that cannot go all the way down. So because if you put your stone is going to sit here, because here it gets narrower because of the curve. So always make sure you sharpen the corner here, because now the stone can come down and sit properly. If it's a curved one, it's just gonna stack, and you would be thinking, oh I haven't opened the hole correctly, oh my hole is too small, my gap is too small for the stone. It's not small, it's just this part that makes it narrower at the bottom. So that's something you need to be aware of. So that's how we do the cupboard. And once you have made your cup and you are happy that the stone fits, and you are happy with the rest of the ring as well, the shape of the rest of the ring, that's when you are opening up the bottom. Because before that, that's fragile. If I haven't made that part still, or this part still needed, finishing and stuff like that, that I have an open gap here, that would make my ring very easy to break. And you don't want, many breakings when it's getting thin, because repairing can be done, but it can be painful in certain cases. Any questions about the cabochon? Anyone? So technically you are taking off material here. It's just that I don't have the pen. They cannot take the computer to the workshop because the internet is not good there. So unfortunately, I cannot show you with the Penda motor, but technically, however, that's how you are digging it off. You're just doing it with a Penda motor, and it's slightly quicker than what I'm doing here, and not slightly, much quicker. And always try to keep your mark there. Don't take it off, because that's what's hard with the circles. Normally, you are using the ball burr, and it becomes a little bit, you can chew off your marking here for the stone, and then, trying to fix that and make it a circle again just by eyeballing it can get tricky, even with a stencil. So that's how it's working for the capuchon. Is that clear? Any questions on the matter? Hmm? Everything okay? So just to, and also last thing, once you've done the cap, of course, you can also hollow it a little bit because you may want the balcony to stand a little bit higher. So you can hollow it from the inside here and do it. So any questions? Let me change the view so I can see all of you.
Eleni,
Yes.
I have a question. So when marking out where the stone will sit, is it okay if we leave 1 mil at the bottom of the ring, or is that too small?
You mean like 1 mil at the from here?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's absolutely fine. As what's important, it's not this distance here from the ring to the base of the stone. When we're talking about cabochons, it's not that important. What's important is the distance from the bottom of the stone, so from this marking to the top, because that's what you need to close it. Once down here, it doesn't matter. It can be higher, it can be lower, doesn't matter.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Everything clear about that? Okay, so that's how it's working with the capuchon. So you are making that cup, you're carving that cup, just try to be accurate in your, and of course you keep trying your stone in the gap. If you want to make multiples, that's why we are wrapping the stone in the paper tape, so we can keep trying it, but it's fatter. That's the only reason that's why we need to put the paper tape around it if we are doing a piece for multiples. So it can get, we can try it, but have it fatter than it really is. If it's in one-off, you just try with the stone to make sure that it fits, kind of like it was done here. We were doing here on, where did it go? The aim under thing that I had. So anyway, we are trying it with that. Oh, here is a drop, of course. So while I was making that one, I always keep checking that it fits. Also, not only it fits, you need to keep checking that it doesn't fall as well. So if it fits quite stably, it's not falling when you are turning it upside down, then your dimensions are perfect. If it fits, you put it, but the moment you go like that, it falls off, it's probably a little bit too big, your gap. So you need to make sure what's happening. The best fit would be for the stone to fit inside the wax, and once you turn it down, it doesn't fall. That's what technically you want. So you need to give it a little bit of a nudge for it to come off. So for example, in this one, because that's around one and I made a mess and it's not finalized, but I need to fix stuff. It still fits okay in certain cases, Anyway, if something goes on, you can always, rectify some stuff when it gets to. Also, that's the reason you want the hole, just a small hole, even though before you open the complete opening, before you do the whole opening, that's why you need the small hole for you to be able to push the stone out. Because if, for example, this one stacks here, I had no hole to press it off. Anyway, that sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't, because it's not a perfect circle. But anyway, I'll rectify it once I cast it. So that's. But yeah, you need the hole also to push the stone in case it gets stuck on the wax, like So that's it. That's it for the cabochon. So for the faceted ones, we need to make the cap that's gonna hold it in, but of course it is a faceted, so your stone So the facetted stone has this shape. So technically all of them, they're kind of like that on the sides. Of course, the ratio may differ. So some of them may have shorter parts here. Some others may have, you know, deeper opening, deeper triangles at the bottom, deeper pavilions. That depends mainly when we are talking, you know, about like cheaper stones that sometimes they're finely, you know, cut. So, and some of them, you know, sometimes you get two of them from the same supplier and they're not cut the same way. Of course, the cheaper they are, the less, you know, the less, of course, diamonds of certain cuts, they're all of them the same anyway. But normally we're working, you know, with, you know, cheaper stones or, you know, amethyst, garnets and stuff like that. So you need to check your stone to know, you know, how deep or how tall it is. And you need to, you know, to check how its height and everything. So you need to know the height here, just, you know, to reference on your design. So from the very top to the very tip of the pavilion down. But what's the most important, it's this distance here. So just a little bit over, again, the zone here and the tip of the pavilion. That's the most important information you need to know. Because two reasons why. First of all, of course, kind of like we did with the cabochon, you need to make your the space where it's gonna sit taller than this distance, so you can close it and hold it in, because you will close it and hold it in once there is metal above the zone. Also have in mind certain stones may not be fully triangle here, may have a small facet here. And actually all of them have, just some of them it's just very, very small. So technically that's how. Some others though, they don't. For example, the one I'm holding, it's very, very thin, the part. So anyway, you need to know, so you have, the moment you have metal above the zone, so you have metal here, that's when your stone is set. That's why we cut the stones like that anyway. So you push the metal here and it keeps it in. Of course, you need, in this case, because it's a triangle, your cap needs to be triangle as well. Of course, again, you want light to pass through, so your metal will come slightly like this here. So you need that height to know how you are gonna keep it in. The other reason you want this height is that you don't want this tip of the stone to stab the finger or, you know, your customer. So this ring, the height of here, it's gonna dictate my design as well, because I want my stone to sit above the finger of the customer, or my finger, or anyone's, or the wearer's anyway finger. I don't want it to be down here, because I'm gonna be stabbing the poor wearer with the stone, and it's gonna be uncomfortable. So you want your stone to sit higher than the skin, but at the same time you want the metal to go higher than the zone for you to be able to set it. So in this case, it's kind of the same situation. It's not that different. So again, you are deciding where the stone is gonna sit. So let's do that one more time for the other wax. So let's say that's my piece. I need to check where my stone is gonna sit. You can see that would be a miracle. So here. So I want my stone to sit above the finger. Let me do the sketch again. So my piece of wax is like that. I need to make sure that wherever I put my stone, the tip is above the hole of the finger. So here, this tip should be above the hole, because that's where the skin is, on the hole. So it needs to be higher. I need to have some distance here. And then, of course, I decide, you know, my stone and my size, decide, you know, how high I want it. So in my case, I've checked it here already, this thing. So my stone is gonna sit higher. And also I took off a little bit of wax at the top, so it's not like a tower. It's gonna come nice. I'm not so sure what you see. Yeah. Again, with my dividers, the easiest thing to measure when it comes, you know, dividers. Again, I'm making sure. Okay, no, that's the whole dimension of the stone. I don't need that information that much. I need that part here. So I'm doing it, I'm eyeballing the reason being exactly because we are giving it quite a lot, because it's easier just to make the cup shorter than, you know, making it too short from the start. That's why I'm doing it like that. So I'm measuring roughly, okay, that's over the zone of the stone and the tip. So it's enough. So marking that one as well. So that's where it's sitting, and the rest, the stone is going to be above that. And again, same situation as before. That stone, it's much, much bigger. I think it's 12, that one. Yeah, it's 12 millimeters. So again, I'm taking my my dividers, 6 millimeters. I'm marking my stone. Yep. And then 6, 8 millimeters. I'm marking the lip. And for one more time, just at the edge. So that's inside my stone, that's the lip around. Also, another thing you can, the thing you can do to check, you know, the dimensions or everything else, you can put also, or if you have like a weird shaped stone for any reason, you can just use a little bit of a double-sided tape, put it on top of your marking and make sure that it stands. It fits in there. Of course, because it's a facetted stone, I need to check it opposite way. If it was a cabochon, I could just, you know, stick it here and make sure that it fits. Also, you will see people not measuring it. Sometimes they just stick it and they mark it around it with the scriber, but that can get a little bit, it's better, you know, to use the dividers if we're talking about circles. So that's it. And then again, it's the same exact process. So technically the only difference is that in this case, I'm not aiming towards the cup thing. I'm aiming towards a cone shape. place. So again, with your tool, you drill through once, all the way down and straight. One time, and then you carve the conical shape where the stone is gonna sit. In this case, in certain of this case, it's good to use the files in the conical shape. It's gonna make your life slightly easier because you can control the slide, the slope a little bit better. Or you can use like for burrs that have that are conical shape, not the round ones, because you need to make an opening like the cone of an ice cream. So yep, I did. Yep, I went through. I'm not sure. So let me see here my tool, it goes through. Here it is. So now I can start filing in a conical shape. Of course, what's gonna dictate your slope is the stone. So be aware of that. So always get that's where it's going to be your outer, that's where it's your tip. So you can, if you want to have an inkling of how, you know, how the corner goes, you can brought down this part a little bit down here, so you can make a mark so you have an idea about and the middle. You have an idea about the slope, you know, how many degrees it is. Just you're not gonna carve it from that side, but just so you have the end here, and that's gonna be the outer part. So roughly, your corner would be here. So technically, that's how much of a slope you will have. That's just for you, you know, to have a reference. It's not like you will carve anything on this side. It's just for you to have a reference of how, you know, you need to file. And then you just file or take material off in that direction. The only good thing with the facetted ones is that it can sit easier also, you know, because it has the cone shape. So the only thing you need to make sure is how deep it goes. If you make it a little bit shorter here, so instead of coming all the way up here, it comes here, your end of the cone, that's absolutely fine still when you are hollowing that helps. What I'm talking about is that when you make the cup, if your cup stops here, that's absolutely fine. We are not very strict about where your cup will end. Can you see here? If it ends here at the stone, or it ends, you know, here, or it ends here, that's up to you, you know. The thing is that you need to have this part. So it's gonna sit in there, and then you will push the metal and close it. So that's it. Of course, the last thing that you can do if you want to set stones on a wax is to carve the prongs. So that's maybe useful if you have like stones first of all, if you like the setting, where, you know, you have the stone and instead of, you know, having all this metal around, you have the stone and then you have a prong here, a prong here, a prong here, that's gonna, you know, hug the stone around, keep it in place. Of course, you can do that. Of course, you need to carve them straight. You have it casted and then you close them. Once it's casted in metal, you put the stone and you push them and you close them. That's one thing you can do. You can use that one also if you have like stones that they are raw, that they are uncut, that they are whatever. It's not like an oval or a circle of certain size. It's cut randomly, or you know, it is. It's you know, it's an original cutting or stuff like that. You can do that. That's always the easiest thing. Instead of trying to make an opening and make it fit in there, that's too much of a, if it's not a regular shape. So I think that's it for the so it's technically these techniques that we spoke about, you know, about measuring and finding centers and everything, and then filing and opening the material, you know, to make the stone fit. Also, and finally, one last, yeah, that's it, actually. Yeah, that's it for the stones. I don't want to confuse anyone. I want to add something, but it's irrelevant to the stones. Any questions about the matter? About putting stones in wax? Of course, have in mind as well that it's good, you know, with the stones stuff, it's nice and easy. But, you know, if you want to organize sometimes something, if your stones, first of all, they are too small, so you have like, oh, sorry. Okay, so if you have like really, really small stones, like 1 millimeter, 1.5, 2.5, don't, you know, don't torture yourself of making the openings in wax. Have it, make your shape, make sure that the stones fit. Once it's casted in metal, set it at that time. Either take it to a stone setter or do it yourself if you can, but after it's casted, there's no much of a point of wasting your time drilling holes, making sure everything is in place. No, this is good if you are doing CAD. So, but if it's CAD, you can, it's very easy, you know, to have the stones and the holes ready and everything. But if you are carving by hand, don't torture yourself, please. That's the, so I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
What would be the smallest you'd want to do if you're doing like hand carving with stones?
Over, yeah, probably 4-5 at least 5 millimeters.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 or 5, depending on, yeah. It's a
So
nice
you-
thing, you know, yeah. Actually, in design wise, it's worth more, you know. If it's a big stone, so you're carving a whole shape, a 3D shape around it for it to fit. So
Wait, so you can't cast sort of like small, like 1 millimeter stones in wax?
if it's already in wax, that's, yeah, because that's becoming in fashion. If you have cases where you have stones already on the wax, in some way or the other, make sure you can cast it in that case, but make sure you check with your with the casting, with the caster, that they can do it and how they can do it and stuff like that. The best source of information about, you know, casting stones on the wax itself is to ask the caster that does it, because they use their own techniques, and it's better for, you know, if you are planning to work with just castings, for example, that I think they do it, go ask them. They may have samples for you to show you, you know, some stuff like that, and then make your piece or design it.
Okay.
So they are, yeah, so you are sure it's worth it. So any other questions, anything else? Everyone happy? So that's how, and of course, if you want to try on, your faceted stone to see if it fits, you just, as you dig your cone, you just try it the normal way, you stick it there in the gap, and you are making sure. The trickiest part and the other trickiest part with all of these settings is to make sure that the stone sits straight. So you don't have a cabochon that sits on a slope, or a faceted stone that sits on a slope. Anyway, it can be rectified to an extent. But, and also have in mind that the stone center is going to open a little bit of a gap as well, so to push the metal. So anyway, but make sure, that it sits in a straight position. I'm gonna add that those slides, actually, it's just a bigger version of what we discussed before. Let me share the screen of what we discussed before with the waxes here. So I'm just gonna add that one. It's not the same PowerPoint, but it looks the same. It's not. It does have some extra pieces. Also, till we are close to food, let me also show you. Because I found them in the workshop and I was like, okay. So I showed you this pink wax that Becky has on the video. That's a little bit tortured. Anyway, they come in. Also, in case anyone gets any funny ideas, don't put this type of wax through the cylinder to make it thinner. Because it's gonna end up on your cylinder, and then you will have to clean it with white spirit and stuff like that. So don't get, because they come in like thin sheets, just buy another box. Sometimes they come in 1 millimeter, sometimes they come in 1.2, sometimes they come in even less, like this one. But don't get the idea of passing it through your rolling mill, please, because it sticks everywhere. I made the a previous technician at VHA really angry while doing that. So I thought it was an amazing idea. Also, that's the purple one that we've mentioned. I bought it, I haven't tried it yet. So this type of purple color. That's why I said at least I can think, it's the hardest thing to see details, the purple. But that's how, and that comes in cylinder shape, actually. And I've got that from Greece. But yeah, it's a cylinder shape without a hole, so you may want to use it for, I don't know, for pendants and stuff like that. I think Cookson has it as well. I don't know what brand it is. And I have that's what I was looking for. So that's how pieces come out. Remember, we spoke about the wax injector and the silicone mold that you put at the wax injector. That's how they come, depending on what wax they're using. In certain, it can be red. In other cases, it can be like greenish, or or like pink. And see, these are done in CAD. So here they have made the gaps for the stones, at least, the positioning. I don't know if it did focus at some point. No, it doesn't. Can you see the gaps for the stones? But that's done on CAD, the model. So they are not ready, after it's casted. Technically, the stone setter needs to go, probably drill through, probably, make sure, but it has the positioning. So they just drill through, they put the stone and they close it around it. You see that small one, but that's done in CAD. That's why they've taken the risk. By hand, can get weird. The same in this case, they have casted the pieces with the bronze ready. So technically the caster then is just gonna open up these gaps here that they still have a little bit of wax, and they will have metal when they come out. Put the stone, close the prongs. With the prongs, sometimes they make like a little bit of a triangular gap, so it's easier to bend on top of the stone. Yeah. And this case, it's the same thing they've made, but these all are models in CAD that they have printed and casted, made the
Did
silhouette.
you make them on CAD?
No, not myself. These ones, these are from we went last year to last January, before the world fell apart. We had gone to an Italian, with the Erasmus program, we went to an Italian school, and they showed us, you know, the wax injectors and stuff, and they had the models ready made. This one has broken.
Oh, okay. And they
So they
gave you
had
some of their bits.
Exactly, you know, we did the wax injector, and we kept, you know, and they casted a couple of things for us as well in brass. So here I have a few of them that they're casted as well. These ones, no, I don't think I have yeah, I can show you how they sometimes they look, yeah. So here, for example, do I have here is the wax model from the rubber mold. Here, that's the
Oh, I can't see.
casting in
Sorry, your
brass.
camera's froze.
Can you?
Your camera's froze.
Is it frozen for everybody? Let me. Okay.
Oh, I can see you, yeah. Mm.
Yeah, now I just switched the camera back on, off, and again.
Yeah, I can see you. Yeah, you're moving
Yeah.
fine, yeah.
So here is the wax from the rubber mold. Here is the casting in brass.
Okay.
And that's the screw at the bottom. And that's again the casting in the wax with the sprue, and the casting in brass with the sprue.
Okay.
They have done, I think, something. I think they've put it on the barrel. Normally, you will need to do like emery paper here to take off the line here. This line is from the mold. It's exactly in the middle, so you will need, you know, they just put it on the barrel, I think. Yeah, that's what they've done. If it's silver, that's how it looks. Anyway, ignore the shapes, because if it's silver, that's how it comes out. If you don't put it on the barrel after the casting, that's the texture, the metal
Right,
comes off. And then you
okay.
just polish it, yeah. If they're not put in the barrel, these were put in the barrel, but they still need some emery paper, because you see the lines of the mold
Yeah.
on the pieces.
They're really nice.
Yeah, and have in mind some of these designs which are very, very simple, like these ones, or this one with the prongs, and the way this has broken and throw it. Sorry. This type, if you go to sometimes the casters themselves, they have some rubber molds of the very basic stuff. So it doesn't harm, you know, if you get a customer that, you know, they want something like that. It doesn't harm to go to your caster and ask them if they have a mold. They can cast, they will charge you a little bit, but, you know, not that much. And they can, you know, cast just one. Because sometimes probably you have seen some announcements as well, where people, you know, selling rubber molds of generic designs. So have a look on that. Sometimes casters have, because people have forgotten to pick them up. So just for the reference, when you are looking for something so simple, you know, and you don't want to do it, you know, on CAD, and then the whole process of that one, something so simple, many casters tend to have like simple rubber molds. That's just as a side note. So any questions, anything?
Yeah, why this wax is red?
This is red because it's a wax for wax injector. So you remember these, let me share the screen. Remember.
Yeah, is it for the machine?
Yes,
thing?
it's for the wax injector. So technically what has happened with these is that it was a rubber mold. You put it at the nozzle there, and inside that it's these types of waxes. They're not carving waxes, they have different properties. Technically, the biggest difference they have is that the waxes for the wax injector, when they are liquid, they're quite like water in substance, you know, while this wax, the green and the blue we are carving, these, when you get them to liquid, they are kind of like honey. They're not that liquid, so you cannot really push it into little details and little crevices. While these ones, they are more liquid.
Okay, makes
So,
sense.
yeah. And that's why there is also the molded wax type of, you know, this type. We mentioned that the very first days, this type as well. This is good for molding as well, but that's normally for bigger molds, not the wax injectors. Yeah, they're using these ones. And yeah, there is a pink one, and that's it, technically. Sometimes, most of the times, they are greenish for some reason. At least in Birmingham, everything I've seen, they were greenish. But it depends anyway on the brand. It doesn't really matter. Because you don't do, and you cannot do anything on it, also have in mind. And you cannot really carve it or do anything on it after you take it off, because these waxes get too soft and they melt easily. They melt at a low temperature. It's not a wax that you can really do anything else with it apart from injecting it on a mold and taking it to casting. Any other questions? Anything? Let me see everyone. So I hope that was useful. I did record the whole thing, and once we finish for lunch, it's gonna let me stop the recording.